Hello and welcome to Every Horror Movie on Netflix, this show where we talk about and watch and discuss every horror movie on Netflix. Back again this week, it's me, Chris, here with Patrick.
Hi, Chris. Good to be here.
And Steven.
Hi, Chris and Patrick. Good to see you both.
Hello, Steven. Good to see you as well.
And it's a good day today. We're back on our alphabetical order bullshit. But before we get started with this week's movie, something I want to talk about.
I'm nervous.
I saw the motion picture. What the fuck was its name?
The Prodigy.
The Prodigy.
Oh,
The Prodigy.
I saw The Prodigy.
How is
this
it?
weekend. I give it a Q. It had its moments, but the reason I'm talking about it on this show is because it's actually from the director of At the Devil's Door.
No way.
Yeah.
I didn't know. How did I not know that?
I don't know. I didn't know it either. But I looked it up, and yeah, and it's funny because it without getting the spoilers, it pissed me off for one of the same reasons At the Devil's Door pissed me off. They both have creepy kids in them,
Yeah.
and I thought they both pulled their punches a little bit at the end with the creepy kid and what happens to him or doesn't happen to him.
I have no interest. I'm not into the creepy kid thing. I feel like it's been done to death. I'm not sure what else you could do with it.
Well, here's the thing. Chris went to see this movie the other night. Then he got on G-Chat the next day, and he's like, I'm going to tell you the whole story of the movie.
I adapted it for G-Chat.
He adapted it for G-Chat in the course of... It took you like an hour.
I wasn't counting.
It was an hour. Which, I mean, great, really. Saved me time, because it's shorter than the runtime of the actual movie. But the basic concept of The Prodigy sounds fucking bonkers and potentially cool. Like, a madman dies and just gets... inexplicably reincarnated in the body of a creepy kid.
Well, it's Chucky.
Yeah, basically.
Child's Play.
Yeah, but there's a push and play.
Yeah, but there's also a kid in it, and the doll acts like a creepy kid would in a creepy kid movie.
But there's like a split personality thing too, where it's like sometimes it's normal kid, sometimes it's creepy kid.
But it sounds like the movie kind of shits the bed from there. But I like the basic concept.
It had some really good scenes. Had some really good suspense in parts. But it's a Q. If you're not into creepy kids, you're not gonna be into this movie. It's not gonna upset the apple cart.
I mean, here's the thing: is there any one of these like sort of cliched genres that you would say you are into? You know, they all require some innovation to make them interesting.
Sure, and there are not a lot of movies I like that I think can easily fit into one of those genres. Like, right. I'm talking like creepy kids or exorcism movies. We get like one or two of those a year. Also a TV series that's in its third or fourth season now. You know, like these things, it's just like the genre exists because one movie did it like perfectly.
Right.
And studios and writers are, you know, still trying to replicate the success of that.
If the entire movie's reason to exist is just to be the latest entry in that particular genre or that particular trope, that's the problem. Like, if it doesn't exist, if its main reason isn't to, you know, first and foremost communicate some sort of idea or thesis statement or create some sort of interesting character, and is instead just like, it's a creepy kid movie, then that's the problem.
Haven't had one of those in a while.
Well,
Right.
I mean, here's a movie that does it well, The Babadook. That's like one of the only ones in the modern era I can think of that is like a good creepy kid movie, because it's also like...
Because it's about something. The point isn't for it to be a creepy kid movie.
Is it a creepy kid? I don't know if the kid in the Babadook's necessarily a creepy kid.
Well, he's not like creepy in the way that
He's an obnoxious kid movie.
I found him to be a very alarming and
like
at times
Cargo.
frightening presence. Yeah, okay, one second. I knew Cargo was going to come up. That said, creepy kid movie I really want to see, Hole in the Ground. Have you guys heard about this?
No.
I've been hearing about it for a while, and it was a big hit at Sundance. I think it's going to come out soon. I don't know what it's about on a larger scale, but the concept just like, and it seems like it's very artfully shot. It's like single mother and her boy living out in the woods. He goes out to play in the woods and plays around in this hole in the woods and comes back, and he's completely different. She can't figure out what's wrong with him.
It's like Christmas Horror Story. When the boy gets lost in the orchard or in the forest, and he gets replaced with the changeling.
Oh my god, yeah, you're right. I barely remembered that.
That was the best part of that movie.
Forgot about that
Well, I hope
too.
this movie is scarier than that.
That was terrifying.
You were terrified?
More so than I was in Terrifier.
That was a solid segment.
Are
Yeah.
you looking up Hole in the Ground?
Yeah, I thought I remembered that the kid from Cirque du Freak, I thought I saw in his biography that he was in that movie, but I'm mixing it up with
I think he was in.
else.
He was probably in The Hole.
Oh, The Hole, yes. Okay.
The what's his name movie? The guy who did Gremlins.
Joe Dante?
The Joe Dante movie.
Oh,
It was either Joe
Dante
Dante or John Landis. I can't remember which one. They're like the same person.
Yeah, it's Joe Dante.
Except one of them killed Vic Morrow and one didn't.
And one had an asshole kid and one didn't.
Well, this sounds fun. Have you seen this movie?
The Hole?
Yeah.
No, but I've heard it's actually really good.
Yeah.
And there's a version of it. Like there's like a well, none of us has a 3D TV, but there is like a 3D Blu-ray of it.
Go to Greg Allen's house.
We know a guy with a 3D TV.
All right, let's see if we can convince him to watch The Hole.
Double feature,
Sure,
The
he'd be
Hole
down.
and Prometheus.
No,
Yeah, fuck Prometheus.
Prometheus is a hole I do not want to wind up again in my life if I can help it.
All right, well, let's talk about what we watched this week. You mentioned it. We watched Cirque du Freak, The Vampire's Assistant.
Pretty unwieldy title, I would say, especially for a children's film.
There's a colon in it. Yep.
But Cirque du Freak just doesn't roll off the tongue. Like would like the 9-year-old that's supposed to that this movie is targeted toward know what like that means, or maybe they've heard of Cirque du Soleil, possibly.
Yeah, I mean,
I was kind of confused.
that's my question. Is there supposed to be name brand recognition here? You know? Like, is this really that popular that it's going to sell solely on the basis of the Cirque du Freak title?
I don't know.
I've met people in the last week who, people at work and friends always ask me what shitty movie we're watching this week. And 2 of them remembered this film and read the books or knew someone who had.
Wow.
Yeah. So
All right.
they were quite popular.
I'm so disconnected from the young adult / youth fiction world that I don't really know what kind of name brand recognition there was on this, especially not in 2009.
Speaking of slash fiction, if I can throw this in here, did anybody pick up on some homoerotic subtones in this film?
No, but I can't wait to get into that in a little bit.
It was just a general feeling I had. I don't know, the particular moments might pop to mind as we're talking about it.
All right, that's interesting. So
I felt it was erotically charged.
Okay.
Oh, there's definitely some erotic charge in certain scenes.
But they must have thought there was an audience for this movie because this is actually like a high budget movie, you know?
Almost $40 million.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's by far, unless I'm forgetting something obvious, the most expensive movie we've watched on this show.
Really?
Right?
Yeah, it's more expensive than Spawn. That was the first one that came to mind.
Okay, I forgot about Spawn.
Yeah, I think you might be right. It doesn't always look like it. It did feel pretty cheap in a lot of places, but
it looks
maybe
like a
because
movie.
Yeah, it looks like a real movie. I guess the cheapness I'm referring to is spawned from a lack of imagination. A lot of the sets look pretty generic. Like
Some of the CG looks like shit. I mean, that fucking spider.
The spider looks fine for what it needs to be.
Okay,
I mean,
you had a problem with the CG in Jason X? Like, all
Yeah.
the CG in Jason X was better than that spider for damn sure.
That's a lie.
I expected a little more realism in Jason X than I did out of this film. It's a fantasy.
Yeah.
I assume the spider was supposed to look kind of cartoony, like it didn't exactly belong in the world.
It did look cartoony.
But it was surprising for me to watch this movie where it looks like a movie. We have several name actors, additional actors that you might even recognize. And
Let's run him down. We've got John C. Reilly as a vampire.
John C. Reilly, who is easy to underrate him. He's an amazing actor, but he is often seen in projects that are dumb.
Yeah, I mean, he does a lot of kind of slapstick comedy.
Yeah.
We've got Selma Hayek,
Selma
very
Hayek.
underserved. The problem with most of these people is they're underused. I guess the assumption was, let's introduce all these characters from the book, and then we'll develop them in the sequels that we will surely make enough money off of this to make. Orlando Jones plays a character. He was still kind of big around, the late 2000s.
Kristen Shaw.
Willem Dafoe.
Oh, yeah, God. I keep forgetting about him as John Waters, basically.
What's her name from 30 Rock?
Jane Krakowski.
Jane Krakowski.
Yeah. Frankie Faison, who was in The Silence of the Lambs. Well, all the Hannibal movies.
Ken Watanabe.
Watanabe, yeah.
Watanabe?
Yeah.
I've never heard his name said before.
Yeah. Yeah. Great cast. I mean, really, like if you look at it objectively, it's a great list of actors, but
you'll see most of these people, with the exception of John C. Reilly, for no more than 4 minutes.
yeah, true.
That's true. But it was still fun to see people that I recognize. This is a movie I really would have liked when I was little, but I'm not sure what the audience for this movie is, because it's not quite like a family movie like the Goosebumps movie. It's PG-13.
There's some swearing, there's some violence.
People say shit for no reason. There's some knife fights. It's maybe a little bit scarier than you would go in a family film, maybe.
It's really tonally inconsistent too. I couldn't really figure out what this movie was. Like at times it seems like it wants to go for like the straight sort of dark horror fantasy vibe, and then there are other times where it felt like even the young leads were behaving as if they were younger than they are. Mm-hmm. Like it seemed like a straight up children's film for quite a while.
Yeah, and it vacillates between like very dopey comedy and, you know, these, like you said, sort of those gothic horror elements. I don't know, it just shifts really wildly from scene to scene sometimes.
Yeah.
We're dealing with high schoolers. Those are our main characters in high school, his best friends in high school. They make a big deal about how they're best friends.
That's where like some of the homoerotic charge came to for me, because like there's a lot of like there's a lot of broiness to their friendship, but there's also a lot of jealousy. Like one of them, Josh Hutcherson's character, gets our protagonist in trouble, and they're no longer, they're like, the term is they're secret best friends now.
Right.
like they've had to relegate their friendship to the closet.
That's actually interesting. I see what you're saying with that.
This could be like the Nightmare on Elm Street 2 of young adult adaptations. I'd have to look at it again.
I kind of want to rewatch it again with that in mind. Wow, that actually makes a lot of sense. Let's talk more about that later. Mm-hmm. I should set up the basic premise of the movie, though. We have a kid named Josh, right?
No, his name is Darren. And Darren
right. Same as the author.
Yeah, because it's the same as the author.
Right, which is interesting, because it's based on a series of books. The protagonist is Darren Shan. The author is Darren Shan. I assume the books are written in first person.
Were these books written by a teen, like the Aragon books?
No, I think it's just one guy.
Think so.
Okay.
At least one guy.
No, a teen.
Oh, no.
Because wasn't Aragon written by like an 11-year-old?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he's just a weird, like, Irish dude, I think. Yeah. And this is a 12-book series. That should also be noted.
12-book series.
And apparently the books are quite dark.
Are they?
From what I've heard, yeah.
Like more so than this movie?
They don't feature like any of the comedy that this movie has in it, from what I understand. Yeah, none of the crappy vampire puns. Well, we'll get into those, I'm sure.
Well, from what I understand, this movie kind of compiles the stories of the first 2 books into one movie.
That's the opposite of what Peter Jackson would have done with this.
Right. So we have Shan. What's his name?
Darren Shan.
Darren Shan is our hero. He's in high school.
Not to be confused with Darren Lynn Bousman.
Oh, God.
Another great Darren.
I wish he had directed this. And his best friend, Steve, who, quickly becomes his secret best friend because he's a delinquent of sorts. One night they go to a freak show and meet a whole bunch of freaks, including a real-life vampire.
An illegal freak show.
Yeah, that is mentioned.
It is illegal to be a freak show. It's just a local ordinance, I think. But
that was fun. And basically, Steve gets in trouble, gets in the hospital. Darren has to make a deal with the vampire to save his life, so he becomes a half vampire. A half vampire, the titular vampire's assistant. And then eventually Steve becomes a vampire, and you got the Darren's getting acquainted with the freak world, learning how to be a vampire, and then there's a generational conflict with another sect of vampires called the Vampanese that is playing out while all this is going on.
I didn't understand what the fuck was up with that the entire movie.
The Vampanese actually kill their victims.
Yeah, Chris explained this to me before, and the movie did not sufficiently explain this to me, but maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention. I don't know.
It's convoluted. I mean, I got it, but I definitely had to refresh my memory before talking about it.
There's a lot going on here, and that's one of my problems with the movie. The Vampanese are what you think of when you think of vampires. Mm-hmm. They're scary.
They're the OG vampires.
They bite you on the neck. They kill you. They do all that stuff. There's a lot of time where John C. Reilly explains that the vampire that they are is more docile and gentle and doesn't have quite the same powers and doesn't bite people on the neck and is kind of a watered down vampire.
And they have the power to not turn their victims into vampires themselves. That was a big thing.
Yeah.
But they can turn them into a half vampire like Darren.
Right.
So he can flit, which I don't know if that name is made up for this. I flitted here, by the way.
Yeah, I noticed the wash of painterly colors as you entered the door. We should explain this flitting shit because it is insane.
They fast travel.
I mean, they flash around. There's this kind of just blur of colors that like billows out behind them as they do so, and it looks fucking stupid.
I thought it was fine.
I didn't have much of a problem with it.
But
I thought it looked so dumb.
I think the reason that you're having so much trouble like understanding the Vampanese or whatever, there's so much going on in this movie and it's pissing me off. I think I said it in the last episode, I was making fun of the whole concept of movies that race into franchise building in the first installment.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and see, here's my complaint with this. With a few exceptions, maybe, I don't think any first installment of anything should have a colon in the title, basically. Like this, based on that title, you're kind of made to feel as though there's an existing series that surrounds this, as though you may be watching like part 2 or part 3 in something. And the entire movie feels that way too. It kind of expects you to already know and appreciate and be familiar with this world. And so even when that exposition that you guys are talking about comes in, for me it felt like too little too late, where like some of these concepts had already been introduced and you're kind of expected to go into it already knowing, I guess from a book or whatever, like what, a Vampanese is. That was the overarching feeling for me through this whole movie, was that I had been like dropped into something that I didn't have sufficient context to understand or appreciate what all was going on. There were all these moving parts.
Well, I think that colon might be there so that they can get the name recognition of Cirque du Freak.
Oh, of course.
But if you've never heard of Cirque du Freak, they can still say, well, it's about the vampire's assistant, and maybe that will pique your curiosity.
Oh, and the poster emphasizes the vampire's assistant, and Cirque du Freak is in tiny font, because that's like a more marketable title. I guess there's nothing exciting to me about a vampire's assistant. I want to learn more about the vampire.
Well, he doesn't, this is beside the point, but he doesn't seem to do that much assisting to the vampire in the whole movie. It seems like the vampire assists him more often than not.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a lot going on, and I really would have preferred this movie to be a more boiled down. There's some really good drama with Darren and Steve. That's a great emotional thing. Steve is about to die, so Darren makes a deal to become a half vampire to save his life. But did I say that the right way?
Mm-hmm.
Steve's about to die. Darren becomes the half vampire. But Steve has always wanted to be a vampire, so when he wakes up from his coma, he's pissed off, and then he becomes a bad vampire. So
yeah, that's another one of my fucking favorite lines is in the voiceover where Darren's like, "I'm really into spiders. Steve's really into vampires."
Oh, I know.
Right.
It's so
that's about all we
stupid.
know about these two characters.
Yeah, yeah.
And if he had the option to become a spider, there'd be no drama. But you have that conflict, and that's great. That's some Greek tragedy shit. Just give me that story. But they're so concerned with building this world that there's so much other shit going on that it's hard to keep it all straight.
There's 3 different movies here. There's the story of their crumbling friendship and trying to bring it back together. There's the freak show, and then there's the vampire stuff.
Right.
And I felt like this movie was sort of built in 3 long stages. It takes forever to get off the ground. It's like a half hour before we see the titular freak show.
It's all there. It's like Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice. It's all there because they want to lay this groundwork for the other 5 or 9 movies that they plan to make.
And spoiler, there are no sequels. And you can even tell watching it, well, if I find any of these characters interesting, especially the tertiary or background characters, I'm going to have to wait until the next movie to really see them do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the irony of that approach is you almost always shoot yourself in the foot and deny yourself the opportunity to make more sequels when you go so hard towards chasing the franchise in your first one that you compromise your whole project and make a shitty movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are just so many tertiary characters introduced as members of the Freak Show, like when they go to the Freak Show for the first time, it goes on and on and on with them bringing in more and more and more Freak Show characters. And like, we just rattled off the list of some of these co-stars. They're not insignificant actors who they hire, who they engage to play these parts, and they're barely there for 30 seconds. Kristen Schaal showed back up kind of late in the movie, and I had forgotten what the fuck her like gimmick even was, or what her personality was.
She's the one with the teeth.
Yeah,
she bites things.
Yeah.
She's like Jaws, the Bond villain. That's her thing.
But by that point, I had already like forgotten who she was or why I should even care, other than that she's kind of just doing her standard like Kristen Schaal shtick that she does on Flight of the Conchords. Yeah, Kristen Schaal shtick that she does on Flight of the Conchords and 30 Rock and whatever else. I don't know. It's very overstuffed.
Overstuffed and also underwhelming.
I mean, there's like, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but like the climax to this is the most underwhelming fucking thing imaginable.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that in the spoiler room. I have a lot to say about that.
Like, it seems to be kicking off some kind of interesting shit when, he gets transformed into a vampire, becomes a vampire's assistant, and then the second act just sags like a motherfucker. The third act is...
It's like I was thinking about.
Lifeless.
I was thinking about other franchises that have a lot of shit to do, and then so I'm thinking about like Star Wars, where like Star Wars set up a lot of shit, and Star Wars: A New Hope, probably more shit than this movie sets up. Maybe not, but like the story of Star Wars was fairly simple, and it relied on some like archetypes and some stuff everyone could recognize, and then they didn't introduce like the larger political world and the Emperor and Darth Vader being Luke Skywalker's father until the second movie, once you got your handle on the basic premise. It was just a good, feel-good, inspirational farm boy's gonna go blow up the Death Star,
and it fucking ends.
And it ends.
Like, and there are no loose ends.
It's a
in the original
film.
Star
It's a
Wars.
standalone film. Make a solid standalone film and then build the franchise off of it. I mean, The Matrix is the same way. But the thing that this movie, like when you're doing something so complex, the fact that the vampires aren't actually what we understand as vampires and they have to explain that to us is just a complete misstep, because not only are you setting up all this, when you're setting up a world that's this complex, you need like tropes that we're familiar with to make it an easier load. You know what I'm saying? Like, if they told me this guy's a vampire now, we're done. Like, I know what a vampire is. You can show me a couple things where he's like learning to drink blood in like a montage, and I'll say that's cute. But they have to say, no, he's a vampire, but he's actually a half vampire. And by the way, the vampires are actually not at all the vampires you're used to. And his main ability is going to be like moving really fast.
Right.
I mean, I guess the premise sort of hinges on the assumption that we know what a vampire is, but I still think it just throws us into the deep end way too quickly with the larger world shit this movie's trying to tackle, or set up at least.
Well, and there are so many fucking weird-ass powers that these vampires have, too. Like, the number one that I just literally guffawed when they said this was, yeah, vampires can breathe a gas that knocks out humans. Like, John C. Reilly just breathes in some dude's face and he, like, passes out. I just laughed aloud.
And
it's
they have
so
the
fucking stupid.
medicinal saliva where they can lick their wounds and they heal Wolverine.
Right.
Just absurd. If I were watching
really long
this,
fingernails also that can like shave the bark off.
Oh yeah,
trees.
their main weapon is their fingernails.
Yeah.
But if I were watching this movie as like a 10-year-old me, 10-year-old Chris, who was obsessed with vampires. I was probably a vampire for Halloween in like 2nd, 3rd grade. Like,
I definitely was too.
Yeah. Love vampires, love Dracula, loved all that stuff. If I watched a movie called The Vampire's Assistant and you give me John C. Reilly as like the most watered down version of a vampire I've ever seen in my life, I'd be like, fuck this shit. I'm going back to watch Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah, but I feel like a lot of those powers I was just talking about are like just prime 10-year-old material. You know, like a 10-year-old be like, yeah, vampires do breathe a gas that knocks out humans. It sounds like something a 10-year-old would come up with.
That's
like
why I asked
Twilight.
if a teen wrote the book.
Like, this is my vampire I made, and he has lots of powers, and one of them is he breathes a gas, and if he breathes on you, you'll pass out.
I think 10-year-olds are smarter than you think.
Yeah, I mean, maybe more like a 7-year-old or something. I don't know.
Can we talk about John C. Reilly?
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
Chris just said as the most watered down version of a vampire imaginable, but John C. Reilly is also playing the most watered down version of John C. Reilly imaginable in this movie.
Completely checked out of this movie. He has zero charisma.
Yeah.
What's odd to me as well is his physical appearance. It seems like they tried to de-age him slightly with makeup. They colored his hair, and he's got this kind of like wispy sort of rock and roll star hair. Mm-hmm. I was extremely put off by him, and I'm like John C. Reilly's number one fan. I love this guy.
We should say while you're making that point, we're not adding dramatic music to emphasize your point. If you can hear any of that, it's coming through the walls of Patrick's apartment building. Someone's listening to like Hans Zimmer's greatest hits on the stereo.
It's the club downstairs.
But yeah,
it's actually the Cirque du Freak warming up for the night.
Yes, yeah, we're going down to see them right after this.
It's Serpentine rehearsing next door.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God, yeah, the Snake Boy.
Yeah.
The Snake Boy.
Another weirdly underdeveloped character that was sort of treated as though we were supposed to care about him. I forgot about him.
Yeah,
He,
Patrick
looks
Fugit.
like a
I love
snake.
Patrick Fugit. What is he doing in this movie?
I don't know. That name is familiar to me. What do I know him
He's
from?
the kid in Almost Famous.
Oh.
He's in Saved.
Right.
and
Okay.
I don't remember what else.
Yeah.
it's probably more fun. Let's just, you can, on your own time, imagine some Cirque du Freak stories that involve all these side characters.
Right. I mean, like, each of these characters is potentially, like, kind of a movie in and of themselves. Like, the Snake Boy, what a weird concept. Like, this kid who's, like, trying to start a fucking rock band. He's a snake. I don't know. Actually, no, that's fucking stupid.
He's a snake person. He has a pet snake who he may or may not have an intimate relationship with.
Right. But John C. Reilly, though, like, why cast John C. Reilly, of all people, for this role?
Search me.
If you can't figure out whether he's going to be kind of like dopey, quirky John C. Reilly, or if he's going to... I mean, yeah, I guess that's kind of the John C. Reilly archetype.
But he's not, like, this character is supposed to be kind of, like, suave, but also removed.
Yeah.
He's not the guy for the job. I've never seen him play a role that approached this kind of character before, let alone a fucking vampire.
Yeah. Doesn't make a goddamn bit of sense.
I'm reading the Darren Shan wiki right now, trying to figure out if, what happened to Evra Vaughn, the Snake Boy. If he had, like, his own movie and his own story arc. I'm very interested in where they were going to go with that. It seems like he's just a side character, though, through the entire series.
See, I like to imagine him starting his own, like, freak school of rock, a la the Jack Black movie.
That would be great. I mean,
dude. A bunch of those little, like, Jawas fucking playing guitars in the background.
I'm surprised this movie didn't feature that as a post-credit sequence.
Can we also talk about the Jawas? What the fuck was going on with the Jawas? They're these little weird-ass, like, lizardy-looking creatures who walk around on two legs and wear little robes.
they're like 2 feet tall.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we kind of have to talk about it in the spoiler room. We may have an answer.
Yeah,
because the ultimate, like, quasi-explanation is so fucking bizarre, but those things were weird. I mean, they were a little cute, too.
This kind of reminds me of our discussion of, like, whenever we talk about kind of superhero movies or any sort of big franchise that, like, wants us to care about the big, like, end of days conflict. Like, there's this like generational struggle between the vampires and the Vampanese, and there's a war starting in this movie, and, like, that's what they want us to give a shit about. And we're, like, longing for, like, some genre movie where the Snake Boy starts a band with his other, snake people.
Yeah, I needed, like, your standard boilerplate, like, opening voiceover with a little animation that was like, for centuries the Vampanese, who are the blah blah blah, have warred against the blah blah blah. Now I, Darren Shan, am
you just
at
wanted
the
to watch
center
Spawn.
of this struggle. Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
I needed that little primer.
No, I don't get. I mean, the story there is, so there's this guy, Mr. Tiny, who is like, he's like a fixer in the freak world, and I guess he wants to start a war between the vampires and the Vampanese. Can't tell why. He just likes doing stuff like that, I guess.
And we don't really know, like, who he actually is or what his powers are, because at one point he rattles off a list of powers and says, like, if I could do any of that stuff, and it's like, but why did you just try to trick us into thinking you could, and, like, what can you do?
I presume it's something where, like, it's kind of aimed at fans of the books. Like, you do know his powers if you read all 12 books, but to us, the uninitiated, it doesn't make a fucking bit of sense. Speaking of Mr. Tiny, another actor who's like wildly out of place in this whole thing. Like I looked up this dude, I think his name is Michael Cerveris or something, and he's a really acclaimed stage actor who has been in all kinds of Broadway productions. He's played like Hedwig and the Angry Inch and Sweeney
Wait, he
Todd.
played Hedwig?
Yeah.
I assume he's under a lot of makeup and prosthetics in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because he's very rotund in this movie. I'm not sure what his like normal physique is.
Okay.
But yeah, another very accomplished actor. And I mean, especially because all three of those roles are so different from one another, I would be fascinated to have seen him as Hedwig or Sweeney Todd or whatever.
Something I did like, I thought that the movie was kind of funny. I laughed out loud a couple times.
I really thought these are Chris jokes. Chris is going to like this.
I forget what I laughed at, but there was stuff where I was like, okay, that's cute. Okay, that's funny.
There's a lot of really stupid vampire puns, like I'm going to go hit the pine. Like when he goes off to bed. I don't remember if it was the kid or John C. Reilly who says that.
It's probably John C. Reilly, and he probably wrote that, improv that, probably.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like this sucks or this bites kind of humor, like easy vampire puns.
But
do you remember anything you laughed at?
I can't remember. I mean, like, I remember when they get the flyer for the Cirque du Freak and the teacher is like, this is illegal.
Yes, I laughed a lot at that too.
That's
and
funny.
I don't know if it was supposed to be funny or not.
I don't know either. I think so. I mean, he's definitely like portrayed as like a square, and then there's actually the mob that comes in and closes down the Cirque du Freak early on. It's the school teacher and like a bunch of their flat, people, and it's clear that like they're just being driven out of town because they're different, even though they put up a legal pretense in front of it, which, I don't know, there was some interesting attempts at like a theme about diversity and stuff like that, and
embracing outsiders
and people who are different than you.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, our protagonist, well, at one point he says, I'm a half vampire, but I'm normal. But from the beginning of the movie, we're supposed to believe he's weird solely based on the fact that he likes spiders. Like, there's nothing else at all unusual about him.
Who doesn't?
I actually, for one, love spiders.
Yeah.
And I mean, surprise.
I'm weird, though.
I mean, surprise, like, he's a handsome young white man.
Well, yeah, that's the interesting thing, because for a movie that makes so much of diversity outside of the freak show, there's no diversity in this movie.
No.
Well,
I mean, there is. Well, wait, what do you mean?
Outside of the members of the freak show, everybody's like white and beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, outside the freak show. Yeah,
I was thinking maybe that's intentional. Maybe it's showing that he lives in this very white bread world, and here's a world of ethnic flavor. Become immersed in. But I don't know. I don't like that.
I guess my point is that like most of the quote unquote freaks have some sort of physical deformity, and there's nothing that really makes him an outsider.
No, except that he doesn't want to go along.
Society to like look down on him the way it does on like the girl with the monkey tail, or the dude with the huge head, or the guy whose like stomach is exposed or whatever.
Yeah,
he really doesn't fit in there.
No,
he doesn't fit in there, but he doesn't fit in the normal human world either. Only in the sense that he doesn't want to do what his parents want him to do. There's that lecture where his dad keeps repeating.
Such a weird scene.
I know. College, job, family.
That was fun. That was funny. I like that.
But then he plays his dad, like it switches over to him playing his dad and reading those same lines. It's another thing that just like the tone of that is so weird. It comes out of nowhere. And I mean, it actually feels sort of unique. It has a distinct flavor to it, but nothing else really has that flavor, know?
There are a few moments. They're like, it's a pretty blandly shot movie too, but there are like some like stray kind of creative scenes. Like, I don't know, there's a scene where like we haven't even mentioned Octa yet, the spider. I mean, we like briefly we talked about the CGI, but like Octa plays like a fairly big role in the early part of this film, and like so Josh Hutcherson's character gets bit on the face because Darren steals Octa from John C. Reilly. Octa escapes in the school, and there's a scene that like follows the spider like going like up the wall and onto the ceiling, and the camera kind of follows us. You're upside down, like viewing the chaos below. There's like little touches like that where this movie actually has a personality, but they're few and far between.
That scene certainly inspired the memorable slapstick sequence in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse at the school.
Yeah, clearly an influence.
Clearly an influence.
This is a landmark film in many ways.
Can we talk about our star? Because we talked about basically every other actor in this thing.
Our quote-unquote star.
God damn, is he fucking lifeless.
He's so bland. He's beautiful. He's a gorgeous boy, but my God, he doesn't even... I don't think he has a personality. I think he was born without one.
It's especially puzzling because in a movie that clearly didn't have a budget problem, you know, they didn't have a problem hiring presumably just about whatever actor they wanted for all these other roles, that they couldn't come up with a better actor than this kid for the lead role.
Right.
You know?
I mean, God knows how many kids they audition for this. And like Josh Hutcherson is fine. I mean, as fine as he ever is.
Yeah. Weird seeing him play like a straight up villainous role though. Like usually he's kind of just a dopey sweetheart.
I'm just I don't know. We'll have to get into the spoiler room, I guess, to talk about that. But I'm just really upset at kind of the mishandling of that storyline, because I thought that had a lot of potential. I liked seeing Steve and Darren. That was the emotional meat of the movie for me. Steve was in a coma. The coma was Darren's fault. Steve wanted to be a vampire. Darren had to become a vampire in his place to save his life. That's actually something else I didn't like, though, because they kind of throw a chosen one thing in on Darren, where like he became a vampire because he was destined to be a vampire or something, and his blood, like he has to taste the blood to see if he would make a good vampire, and like Steve was not destined to be a vampire for completely arbitrary reasons.
Yeah, but he's the vampire obsessive.
Yeah.
It seems like it should have been him. Sad story.
Good exchange late in the movie where Darren's like, I became a vampire to save your life, and Steve's just like, thanks.
I was gonna save that for the spoiler room, but it's not really a spoiler. There's a fight, and that's like, that's a really important thing that they need to like have a talk about. I was looking forward to that reveal, and it happens like mid-fight. They're like punching each other, and he says that, and it just doesn't even register with Steve.
No.
I don't know.
Thanks.
What a mess.
It's super passive aggressive, like bitchy. Thanks.
I mean, we're talking a lot of shit, but I like the tone. I like that this was a movie targeted for a young audience that had horror elements in it. I'm glad that those movies exist. I'm glad that the Goosebumps movie exists.
Glad that Booth Noth exists.
I'm glad that Booth Noth exists.
This movie needed Mr. Bonku.
Don't they all?
You know,
that raises an interesting question. It has horror elements. I don't want to get too mired again in the is this horror question, but like, does this really belong in the horror category on Netflix?
Sure.
What do you guys think?
There's a wolf man in it. There's vampires in it. It doesn't elicit dread, but it definitely...
Wolfman was hilarious too. He looks like a fucking baboon. He doesn't look like a wolf. He looks primate-like.
This movie should have taught you not. This movie should have taught you not to make fun of people for their appearance. Okay,
including Wolfman.
Yes.
No, I'm not making fun of his appearance. I'm making fun of the fucking whoever designed him and thought that was what a Wolfman looked like.
Well, I was thinking of this film in terms of like kids or like young adult or like teen movies in reference to the Monster Squad, which actually I do think like I would call the Monster Squad, I would put it in the horror category simply because it does like fully embrace the horror tropes, and there is some kind of excitement and dread in certain scenes. Also, I think the Wolfman scene was a callback to the Wolfman's Got Nards.
Yeah, there's a joke about the Wolfman's balls in this movie. Yeah. I mean, it has to be.
Yeah.
It has to be a Monster Squad reference. If not, that's bizarre. Do you know what we're talking about?
No, I haven't seen Monster Squad, but that's okay.
Monster Squad has a famous line where a kid says, "Wolfman's got nards." Nards?
I think it's nards. Nards, yeah. And also, Dracula calls a 6-year-old girl a bitch.
Dracula played by Tom Noonan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Wait, no, Tom Noonan is Frankenstein.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
Somebody sweet plays Dracula, though. I don't know. We're going down a rabbit hole on this one.
I'm just trying to pull out positive things I liked about the movie.
Good for you.
Wolfman's balls were great.
Well, should we go to the spoiler room, guys?
Yeah, I don't know what else to say before we get into that.
All right.
Even though I feel like we've already like overreached and gotten into quite a bit of it.
We'll get into some more plot synopsis and discuss the ending of this movie. But first, it's time to say whether you view it, skew it, or screw it. Steven, What do you think?
What do you think I'm gonna say?
I think you're gonna say screw it.
I'm gonna say screw it. I mean, I could see a version of this movie that was enjoyable, like the kind of movie I would want to just like get stoned with a couple of friends and watch, but it's lifeless. It's way too long. It's almost 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It sets up way too much with almost no payoff. I do feel like it's one of the most like movie-like looking movies we've seen in a while, but it still feels cheap and made for TV in a lot of places. A lot of wasted talent. I wouldn't even say wasted potential, because I think what it strives to be is something I'm not totally down with. I don't need alternate versions of vampire mythology in my life.
No.
Yeah, screw it. Patrick?
This is hard for me because, I mean, it's a screw it, but also it's unique in that I guess it didn't offend me as much as most movies that I would give a screw it to. I think that's because I feel like it actually succeeds at what it sets out to do. Like, I feel if you are a 13-year-old whatever fan, whatever age old fan of this series, and you watch this movie, my sense is that you're probably going to be pretty pleased with the way it's been translated into the screen and the way you as a fan have been catered to. That's my sense.
I feel like the fans deserve a better quality movie, though. And also, like I said, I've heard the books are really dark, and this movie grafts like an oddball sense of humor onto it that the fans maybe weren't pleased with. Enough so that not enough of them came out to see it to boost the box office enough for a sequel.
I can't say the movie set out to do what it intended, because they didn't make a second one. And this movie's so obviously swinging for that franchise.
Is that a merit to set out to be a disappointment and achieve it?
That's not what they set out to do.
All right, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I don't know. I guess it's not that offensive. It's not an offensive film to me. I don't know. I'm just trying to put my finger on what it is exactly. It's not terrible. It's just I can't recommend anyone spend.
It's in the middle place.
It's in the exactly. It's in the medium place with Mindy St. Clair. I don't know. I guess I'm having trouble crystallizing what exactly I have to say about this. So, Chris, what do you say?
I thought I was going to give this a cue it, but I don't think I can. I think I have to give it a screw it. And that's not to say no one should watch it. There's a lot of stuff I liked about it. It's well made. There's some interesting drama. Like I said, this thing with the guy's friend, lots of potential in that story. There were some storylines that interested me. There was some humor. I laughed out loud several times. John C. Reilly might not be doing his best work, but I thought he was fun enough to watch. But it just really gets bogged down with this heavy-handed world-building franchise swinging stuff, and it's not fun. It's very dry for long stretches. If this were just like some kid learning how to be a vampire under the tutelage of John C. Reilly and Selma Hayek as the crazy fortune teller, view it. But that's not at all what we get. So screw it.
Yeah, that's a classic case of that. Sounds like a pretty interesting movie to me, actually. I mean, especially because Selma Hayek is
hilarious,
vivacious, and fun in the like 2 scenes that she's actually in. And you give John C. Reilly some license to actually cut loose and be John C. Reilly and focus the movie on that shit. Sure, let's go.
Yeah. So it's really frustrating for me to give this a screw it, because I wanted to like it. I kind of did like it while I was watching it, but it just missed the mark. It's not the Cirque du Freak movie we deserve. There's so much good stuff in here. That's why I'm frustrated. There's enough good stuff that I don't want to throw that in the garbage, but it just undermines itself.
This is what happens when the team behind American Pie makes a young adult adaptation.
I've never seen American Pie, but it's a classic, so...
Paul Weitz, who directed this, has done a bunch of odd things as well. He directed the Golden Compass adaptation, which also does not have a great reputation. No. I don't know if anyone's seen it.
Another film that was supposed to have 2 sequels.
Yeah.
Like,
he's had a weird career. I don't know exactly. I want to know what makes that dude tick, or what projects he seeks out exactly.
Just make a good movie. The franchise will come later. And that's the irony, because we know this, because we have movies like A Quiet Place that are very one and done. That's the end of the story, and people love it, so they're like, oh, can we make 2 more Quiet Place movies?
But there's also the Lord of the Rings of it all, where like we know that there are going to be 3 movies because there's 3 books. Jackson probably would have made 9 movies if he could have, but he was able to secure funding for all 3 and set release dates from the start. So like we know the first film isn't going to be fully resolved, but it's resolved enough in that like we've gone on like the first leg of the journey with these characters and we care about them enough that we want to see more, and we know that there will be more. That's another route to take too. But like to just make this movie almost like as like a franchise starter on spec is totally insane to me.
Paul White's also the Oscar-nominated or Oscar-winning writer of About a Boy. Weird guy.
Baby Nicholas Hoult. I should watch that one again.
And this movie's about 2 boys, but not twice as good. All right, well, I guess we can go flit over to the spoiler room.
I think I might want to hit the pine first.
The spoiler Cirque.
Can hit the pine afterwards.
Got some speakers in there.
A cup holder too.
Oh, jeez. All right, well, if you want to make your own decisions about Cirque du Freak and you don't want to have the riveting climax spoiled for you, go check it out. And otherwise, we'll be back in a few seconds. We're going to spoil everything.
Yeah, like one of the first things I texted you about this is that Red Right Hand is in this movie during a what are they doing? They're in a graveyard. They're digging up
John
somebody.
C. Reilly is digging up fucking Darren, yeah. Also, we keep calling him John C. Reilly because his actual name is so weird.
It's so unmemorable.
It's like a 200-year-old vampire name.
It's just hard to get your tongue around. Crepsley. The entire movie, I was like, what are they saying? What's his fucking name?
We're back. We're back in the spoiler room.
Hey, we're back.
By the way,
we're in the spoiler Cirque.
We didn't talk about the opening of this movie, which I actually thought was like kind of a cool way to begin a movie. Our protagonist is in a coffin playing a Game Boy or whatever, or playing
a game on his phone.
Whatever the kids play.
And it's just like a great in media res setup. Like, why the fuck is he alive in a coffin with his family weeping above? I want to find out what happened to him. How did he wind up here?
Perfect. View it.
That would have been a View It movie if that had been it.
The cell phone's interesting because
first 45 seconds.
No, but if the movie was about like a, I don't know, like a Harold from Harold and Maude type character who's like constantly faking his death to like escape his shitty parents and his terrible fate, the whole college job family thing.
Yeah.
That'd have been cool.
Cell phone was interesting to me because there's only 2 moments in this movie where cell phones come into play at all. There's him with the gag where he's playing with it in the casket, and then there's a part where he's like trying to call somebody and John C. Reilly takes the phone and he's like, vampires don't use cell phones, and like
that was funny.
Stomps it out.
It's genuinely funny.
It's like a Bailey School Kids title.
That was a really great moment.
Yeah. But other than that, this movie kind of has a timeless aesthetic. It kind of reminded me of Christine and how we were talking about how the wardrobes are weird and it's kind of like a 50s, 80s fusion, Old West sort of thing through the movie. This movie, like, everyone's kind of dressed like it's they're in the 80s or something, and the classroom has like green chalkboards, which you don't see in schools anymore in the modern age. I was like, is this like a covert period piece? There's really no hallmarks of the modern world in this movie. Nobody uses Google. Nobody Googles vampire.
True.
But then they put the cell phone in it and it kind of ruins it.
Yeah, and like Steve like actually reads physical books. He's got a book about vampires, and that's how he recognizes John C. Reilly.
Right. And when I was a kid, I had books about vampires, and I liked that.
Werewolves and all that.
He goes to the page, he's like, "Oh, look, there's Crepsley. He was a vampire." Blah 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 blah.
Instead of just like pulling it up on his phone or Wikipedia,
looking at
it was a nice touch.
Yeah.
I like it.
Books are good. I mean, that's kind of the theme of this movie. Books are good, which brings me to the thing I fucking hated the most about this movie. Are we ready to get into that?
I thought you were going to talk about Marie Kondo for a second.
No,
How many books are we allowed to have? Have we figured that out yet?
As many as you want.
Oh, okay.
If you feel bad about getting rid of your books, you don't do it.
As long as they spark joy,
we can talk about this because it's on Netflix.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it. I like know the basic concept, the sparks joy shit, and I have cleaned my entire house in the past like week or two, semi-inspired by the fact that the Marie Kondo thing is a thing and that a bunch of people I know are doing it. But I haven't watched the show. I haven't read her book or books, and I don't plan to.
Steve and I
I'm glad you kept all my DVDs.
I got rid of a couple because they were like that fucking the one format where it's like there's a black rectangle around everything.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how that happens, but
Oh, you mean like the actual form? I thought you meant like the ones that I've gotten from like video stores. I thought you were talking about the case.
No, the picture on the TV. Like, what do you call that? Why
full
does that
screen.
happen?
Or not full screen,
full
but
screen?
no, I know what you mean. Where it's like
Letterbox.
really tiny in the middle of the screen, like it's not formatted for widescreen TVs.
Like you have to blow it up.
Yeah, it's letterbox. Instead of a 16:9 picture, they're giving you a 4:3 TV picture with a letterbox 16:9 image in front of it, or a 240 by 1, whatever the hell format your movie's in. That's the problem with The Abyss, because we need The Abyss on Blu-ray because the only DVD of it is like that. No one wants to watch that shit.
How do I tell in advance if that's going to happen with the DVD? Because I want to get rid of all the ones that have that.
I don't know if you
watch
can.
old DVDs. Like I tried to watch Life Force like that, and it was just this tiny image in the middle of my screen, like I don't know, like 12 by 18 on my widescreen TV. I'm like, what the fuck?
I mean,
I couldn't blow it up either.
Yeah, I have settings on my TV where I can actually blow it up, but then it looks even more shit than a DVD usually does.
Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome to
just get rid of your
Chad.
DVDs and buy blue.
Yeah, but that costs money.
Yeah. Well, Steve and I were both just like, when you were talking about that, just eyeballing everything
what's
you
changed?
own. Like I was like, all this shit sparks joy for
David's
Patrick.
still here. Bruce is still here.
Hell yeah, man. That shit sparks joy. But we're getting way OT at this point.
Do we have anything to spoil before I get to the part that pissed me the fuck off?
No,
I'm just going to go for it. We'll come back to it.
We'll fill in gaps if we need to.
So basically, you already know everything that there's to know about this movie. There's no real interesting subplots, really. He just kind of hangs out the circus, befriending everybody. There's a little bit of a romantic subplot with the monkey girl, who is a completely normal girl who just has a tail that we almost never see because it's coiled up in her pants.
And, you know, I appreciated about that character that she looked like a normal person. She didn't look like a fucking Hollywood-ass actress. She just looked like a normal girl.
Sure.
I appreciated that.
She was
Is this movie saying that anything less than a gorgeous Hollywood actress is considered a freak?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
I'm just kidding.
I would have liked to see him fall in love with someone who was, like, more freaky.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like the
a
fucking wolf
like
man.
Steve? I bet Steve's freaky.
Yeah.
And that would be freaky.
So yeah, about Steve, about the best friend, because the whole movie's been setting up this Titan conflict between Darren,
Clash of the Titans.
Darren, our hero, the half vampire who only became a half vampire to save his best friend's life, and then fell out with him, and then Steve, who went down the dark path, became an evil vampire, and the two of them are going to spark the war that's going to consume the earth with vampire hellfire.
I just want to know, you like referenced this sort of conflict between them multiple times now, and this did not register with me as such a high drama it did for you.
And what's crazy to me about this is, like, I'm imagining, and like we see pictures from like old vampire textbooks or whatever the fuck they are about like what that conflict looks like, and I'm imagining in my mind like maybe we're gonna see a glimpse of that. This movie feels so small and so cheap.
Yeah,
that, like, I don't know how, I can't imagine like the Peter Jackson like Battle of Minas Tirith battle that they're talking about being made with a budget like this.
Well, no, it was going to be made with the budget that they would give to Cirque du Freak 2 to Cirque du Freak.
It would be such a leap forward to have to take these characters and put them on that scale, though. At least with like Fellowship of the Ring, it sets up like the large scale shit in the first couple of scenes. Then we scale it back and build back up to it, so we know that we'll be convinced when we finally get there.
I don't know. Maybe it doesn't happen in the books. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, in this movie, the biggest conflict that we get is four people, like two separate duels happening with two different sets of dudes beating the shit out of each other in a fucking movie theater.
Yeah,
there's never more than 20 people in a room, and we're talking about a battle of thousands of vampires and vampanese.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm even talking about like the final conflict in this is literally just four people.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, not even. I mean, they could have they could have had like 6 vampire soldiers and have like the Cirque du Freak, weaponized and called up and fighting. You could have the little, You could have all those little characters that we like doing their shit in a melee. You could have the teeth girl biting vampires on the neck.
Yeah,
and
this would be fucking
like
sweet.
some X-Men shit.
Yeah, X-Men shit.
That's what this group of misfits reminded me most of was
But
X-Men.
it's led by Ken Watanabe.
Watanabe. Or Watanabe. I'm not sure.
Oh,
so Chris may have said it correctly.
No, Chris keeps dropping a syllable.
Ken Watanabe. He makes a big deal about how the Cirque is neutral in all conflicts. So whatever. I don't know.
Wait, what made him a freak other than his like tall stature and weird
his head is kind of weird.
Yeah, he was tall as hell, and his head was funny.
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be like 7 feet tall or something like that.
That's not even that freakish. There are real humans who are 7 feet tall.
Well, they should be in a freak show.
Okay. Well, somebody tell Peter Mayhew.
So I just want to throw in the final detail of like who's actually involved in this final battle, because we haven't even said. The final battle is Darren v. Steve, Dawn of whatever.
I
whatever.
Don't have anything.
And Crepsley, John C. Reilly, v. a character who we haven't even talked about yet, because you don't know who the fuck he is. When we got to this battle, I didn't know who the fuck that character was. What's his name? Murtaugh?
I don't know. He's the enforcer. Merlot. He's the enforcer for the Vampanese. He shows up. They have like 2 fights throughout the movie.
Yeah, he somehow became important at the very last moment, and I was like, who is this? Why do I give a fuck?
Yeah, you don't give a fuck.
So tell us what pissed you off.
So here's what pissed me off. We finally have Darren and Steve. Darren doesn't even fucking know that Steve's a vampire. He finds out at this moment. Steve and the bad guys have kidnapped Darren's whole family, who he's already made clear he doesn't give one fuck about, so I don't know why that's a plot point. And he's kidnapped cute little monkey girl who we care about because they had literally like one conversation in like a coat room. And
I'd forgotten about her until they're reunited.
Yeah. I'm like, this is it. Darren v. Steve. Let's do this thing. A melee ensues. They're fighting. Blah, 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 blah. Steve tries to make a deal with Darren to come to the dark side. He says, hell no. They're fighting. The fight reaches a fever pitch. And Mr. Tiny, this fixer that we've been talking about, who's been pulling the strings the whole time and has ambiguous magical powers, freezes the fight mid-fight with magic and says, literally, no, it's not time for you two to fight yet.
It's all written in a book.
It's all written in a book. You read books, don't you? It was like the movie's literally fucking trolling us, saying this conflict that you've been curious about the whole movie, we're not going to show it to you because it doesn't happen now in the books, and go read the Cirque du Freak books by Darren
Shan.
Oh, I didn't even think about it that way.
Yeah.
It's like a marketing strategy. See, I know you were pissed off, and I fully understand why. I was relieved because I knew this thing's about over. We've got like 3 minutes left. They're going to wrap it up, and I never have to think about it again. Well, until tonight.
Well, to me, that's what I'm talking about when I say that I feel like if you are the prototypical 12-year-old or 13-year-old fan of these books, that's the moment where you're like, oh yeah, I do know what happens. And you feel like you're being spoken to in that moment. That's what I mean when I say I feel like it's serving its purpose. It's serving its like target audience.
There's probably some 8-year-old in the theater who got really pissed when they started to fight, and he was like, no, it doesn't happen till the 3rd book.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well,
I will say I read Amy Nicholson's review.
I love the 8-year-old voice. No, it doesn't happen till the 3rd
It's
book.
about as good as your 10-year-old voice.
Well, a lot happens between the ages of 8 and 10.
Amy Nicholson's review, I've just become a fan of her because she has a podcast with Paul Scheer now, Unspooled, where they're going through the AFI 100. So I get excited when I see she has something around Tomatoes. She said she saw the film with like a crowd of supposed fans of the books who were similarly underwhelmed by the film. So yeah, I don't think it really spoke to the fans at the level that we're hypothesizing it might have.
That makes me sad.
Those poor bratty 8-year-olds.
The only other thing to spoil, I guess, is the romantic subplot with Monkey Girl, because that takes some uncomfortable turns for me.
Oh yeah, that's when Steve was talking about eroticism when they make out at the end, and like
and
her monkey tail like unfurls and starts like kind of flapping around in the wind.
If you got your mind in the fucking gutter, it's a boner. But I read it as like the traditional romance film where she's popping her knee, behind the kiss. Popping a leg. Watch Princess Diaries. They talk all about that.
There's something about the way it kind of worms its way out of her skirt and creeps up in the air that was very phallic to me.
It's very phallic. It arises from her nether regions.
I mean, whatever. I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying, maybe it was a little more innocent than that. I don't know.
I doubt it. I mean, the movie's called Cirque du Freak, and it's from the guy who directed American Pie. Like, I'm sure he wanted to inject a little bit of kink into it when he could.
Okay.
Come on, you're giving it way too much
You're
credit.
right.
He wanted to inject a little bit of kink into it.
You're right. Didn't know it was that kind of freak, but that makes some sense. Damn. I'm thinking about this movie in a whole new light. Yeah, she's held hostage. It's like the end of Batman Forever when the Riddler has Nicole Kidman and Robin in a fucking tank.
Yeah, they're all fucking hanging from ropes over the stage that are like looped around their chests.
Apparently, not
Darren's
really
whole
in any
family.
peril because they're over the stage, but like it's not like they're going to be hanged or fall to their death.
No, they're not
like,
hanging by the neck. I was just thinking about how uncomfortable that was for some of those actors.
Yeah, and Monkey Girl escapes because she has a prehensile tail that can undo the knots, so she gets out.
Mm-hmm.
And then Darren finds her, and he's like, I'm weak, I'm not strong enough to fight Steve. And she's like, well, you need to drink my blood. And there's this awkward scene where, like, it's like it clearly has sexual undertones, if not overtones, because she's like, bares her shoulder for him, and he's like, no, I can't lose it now, or something like that. And then he explains that he means like his one rule is to not drink human blood because he thinks that keeps him human. Does he drink the blood?
Yeah.
Yes, then he does it anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, yeah, because she tells him being human isn't about what you are.
It's about who you are.
Who you are.
Oh, yeah, that's the
how
moral
you
of the
are.
movie.
But
Yeah.
isn't who you are also what you are?
Dude, I don't know.
It was awkward for me because that girl, first, I mean, their relationship wasn't very well established. It's like one or two conversations before that.
Well, the kid's fucking shallow. We know this from the beginning of the movie. I felt it was a very believable romance.
Sure. And then, I don't know.
I would have liked to have seen more as well.
And
But this
also-
movie was already almost 2 hours long.
I was uncomfortable because she looks way too young for me to be comfortable watching, like, overtly, like, sexual kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Who knows how old she was when she filmed this, but she looks like 17 or something.
She looks younger than that.
16.
15.
Well, yeah,
14.
like our lead, Darren,
13.
looks like he's like 15 or 16, and there's a scene where it looks like Salma Hayek's dry fucking him in front of an audience.
Wait, what? Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Selma
weird.
Hayek comes on to him,
After her
like-
beard comes out, too.
Oh, yeah.
Again, I'm going to be thinking about the queer subtext of this movie for a while. I haven't put it all together yet, but I'm developing a
You
thesis.
should write an essay about it.
I should, for Bloody Disgusting.
I'm pretty excited about that. Wow.
So are we drafting our dream Cirque du Freak?
Yeah, so we came up with a little bit of an idea during the intermission where we're going to build our own Cirque du Freaks, or Cirques du Freak. I don't know what the plural is. We're going to use freaky characters from the Every Horror Movie on Netflix catalog, all the movies we've watched for this show. And we're going to just do it like a draft. And then we'll put it online and y'all can vote on which of us made the freakiest Cirque.
Like, we're each going to like make our own Cirque, like entirely?
Oh, it's going to be a draft. We're making teams. We're building teams.
So we could theoretically do repeats?
No, it's like a draft. Oh God, you guys don't.
We don't know what a fucking
You
draft is.
guys don't know anything about sports.
No.
I'm on this fucking podcast. You think I know anything about sports?
No, every character in the movies we watched are in the draft pool, but they can only go to one team. So we go around and you pick one and you claim it for your team.
Okay.
For your
Okay,
Cirque, if you will.
Yeah.
So, we first need to have a list of all the possible freaks.
No, you don't,
Oh.
because I sure as hell don't know what kind of freaks
I'm just
there
looking
are.
at the list of movies we watched.
With the first pick, I don't know, with Steven's idea, we'll give him the first pick in the Every Horror Movie on Netflix Cirque du Freak draft.
Okay.
Number one pick.
Malbolgia.
Oh, yes.
Malbolgia. God damn you.
CGI freak.
Yes.
We have to specify what kind of freak it is.
CGI freak. Okay.
Well, I guess we don't necessarily have to, but
So that's the devil from Spawn, we should say, because not everyone listens to every episode.
Yeah, the shitty looking
shame on
CG
them.
devil from Spawn.
All right.
We'll probably post a picture on Instagram.
All right. Do you have one, or should I go next?
I'm ready. I'm gonna start with fucking. I think this is his name. Fucking Baba from Baskin. Is that his name?
Yeah. Or the actor's name was Mehmet, but
Yeah.
I know who you're talking about.
I think the character's name was Baba.
The high priest in Baskin.
Yeah.
What a
Who's
freak.
Just an absolute freak. Yeah.
What a freak. That's a good one. All right, with the third pick in the draft, I'm going to pick Art the Clown.
Yes. Yes.
The Terrifier.
Great.
gotta
pick.
have a clown in any good freak show. Gerald, video surveillance freak.
Oh, okay. That's the first pick of the second round of the draft. All right, Steven.
Gerald.
Gerald from 13 Cameras and 14 Cameras, but we haven't watched that one yet. Okay. What do you got, Patrick?
Tough choice, man. I'm struggling between a couple right now, but I think I'm gonna go ahead with the unnamed creature from The Ritual.
Okay.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
Not
The
bad one.
monstrous moose-like thing with a Jawa for a head.
Moose Freak.
Moose freak.
Hell yeah. All right. I'm going to go with Fucked Up Baby Freak from Anti-Birth.
Oh yeah, I was thinking about that one. Good choice.
Yeah, you got to before I could.
Okay.
The Moonlight Man.
Oh,
Ooh.
the Moonlight Man, the perfect
Yes.
freak from Gerald's game. Yeah, with his little box of thingamajigs.
Yeah, you don't want to see him standing in your corner at night.
You sure don't. Jesus. All right, Patrick, your third pick.
I'm gonna go with the titular character from It Follows.
Okay, the creature. That's a freak. That's a freak for sure.
It is in my Cirque for sure.
All right.
Chris, your third round pick.
Yeah, all right. My third round pick is...
Maybe we should go for 5. I have 2 more that I really want to draft.
I've only got one. I could come up with two.
All right, we can go
Let's
to
do
5.
5.
You go to 5. I'll pick Krampus from A Christmas Horror Story.
Oh, I was thinking about that
All
one.
right, I like
Little
that.
winter freak.
I'm gonna go with, there are multiple in this film, but I'm going to go with the titular avalanche shark, ghost shark freak.
Okay.
Good pick.
Good pick. Good pick.
I was thinking about that, and I'm going to follow in that spirit by making my 4th round pick the 3-headed shark.
Oh,
from 3-headed
which
shark.
is
Attack.
freakier? You decide.
I feel like the 3-headed shark would fucking kick the avalanche shark's ass, because an avalanche shark is a force to be reckoned with, but it still only has one fucking head.
Okay, guys. I'm going to pick with my 4th pick, right?
Yes.
Prince Veer from 1920 London, who was possessed, then saved by Jay.
I don't even remember Prince Veer.
He was the guy, the husband who was like chained to the bed and like eating meat in the window and shit.
Oh, in like Jay's introductory scene.
No. No, he's like the guy that Jay is trying to exorcise after Jay possessed him.
Oh, all right.
Damn, you forgot already.
Yeah.
All right. well,
Sorry, Jay.
That's what I'm talking about.
Apologies to Jay.
All right, round 5. I'm going with the cringe-worthily named the Canker Man from Before I Wake.
Oh no,
Yes.
the Canker Man.
The made of butterflies and bad puns freak.
Oh,
Yes.
good pick.
I'm torn with my final pick here. I was kind of thinking about throwing Christine on my team, but I gotta kind of bring it all back home to Spawn, because there's so many fucking freaks in that movie.
Please don't say clown.
Martin Sheen. Oh, God.
No, I'm gonna put Spawn on my team. Spawn's
Spawn.
freaky as hell.
Oh, not as freaky as Clown.
He's
but
freaky.
okay.
You can get freaky with those chains.
One could. Chris, your final pick.
All right, the final pick in the 2019 Amon Freak Draft is... You know what? I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to pick Jason. From
Okay.
Jason X.
Specifically from Jason X.
New
Yeah.
Jason.
New Jason.
Yeah.
Mega Jason.
Sicko mask Jason.
Sicko mode Jason.
Okay, thank you.
All
That's
right.
a good one. All right.
Good one. Good little Cirque. I'm comfortable taking this show on the road.
All right, so review. Were you taking notes on this, Chris?
No,
Oh, okay.
I don't have my Apple Pencil. I can't take
okay.
notes.
I wanted to review like who each of our Cirques were, but we can't do that. That's okay. So what are we doing with it from here?
We're gonna post these lists online, and people can vote who had the sickest, freakiest team.
We should
The
create.
sickest Cirque.
We should create a Photoshop.
Yeah,
Of each team.
sure. Yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah.
You know, something else I want to talk about. I got the new Fangoria a couple of weeks ago. I'm still kind of scrolling through it, but you guys have not gotten on the Joe Bob Briggs train yet, have you?
No, I'm sorry.
You remind us every episode, but
It's
it still
really,
hasn't happened.
really worth your time. I don't know anybody else I can talk to about this. The man's amazing. He's on the cover. There's 2 articles about him. Again, this is a classy fucking magazine. I feel like it's even improved in quality and content with this most recent issue.
It is expensive. I saw it at Vault of Midnight the other day, and it was like $20 or
It's
something.
1990, or I'm sorry, it's 1978 because that's the year the first issue came out.
Yeah.
It's worth it because I mean I still haven't finished the first issue. Like there's so much in there and it's such high quality. Granted, I have coffee stains on the cover of the new issue already, but it's definitely something I'm going to keep around as a reference and revisit for the rest of my life.
I flipped through it, and they show you in detail how to make yourself up to make it look like the side of your face has been blown off with
Yeah.
a shotgun, and that's what I'm really expecting out of you, Steve. And I want you to show up next time and us just be like, "Fuck, what happened to
I'm
you?"
thinking about it. Shit's complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like most basic recipes. I'm like, I don't want to buy that extra spice that I'm only going to use for this one thing. You've got to have all kinds of like different gums and paints and
Yeah.
wax and all kinds of shit that I don't know.
You don't just have it sitting around the kitchen.
Well, I'm not going to do it for the podcast. This is not a visual
mean, I
medium,
was
but I might show
joking.
up at a party with my face blown off.
Patrick's doing
Our
it.
Instagram is a visual medium.
Yeah, he's doing the Instagram. He needs content.
Yeah.
Good stuff, everybody. I think that's about it for this week. Would you
This
like?
freak.
Oh, would you like to know what we're watching next time?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
please.
Because you looked it up before, and your reaction was interesting.
I didn't tell you, but we're
Yeah,
watching.
you didn't tell us what it was.
Yep.
You were just like, oh.
We're watching the Netflix original
Ooh.
Oh.
Huh?
Clinical.
Never
Never heard of it.
I've seen it on the list. I don't know what it's about. I think it's about like an asylum or a crazy person.
Mm-hmm.
Clinical.
Any other notes? Are there like notable actors? or
I don't
anything?
know. As you know, I try not to go into these movies knowing anything about them. So I can't tell you. You can look it up. You can Google
And
it.
we also, for some reason, like try to go into each episode without looking up on our own what we're going to be watching next. We're always just like, Chris, what are we watching? We rely exclusively on you.
I appreciate your trust in me. All right. Well, until next time, check us out. You can find us online. Leave us a little message. You can troll us. Maybe we'll troll you back. Tweet us, Insta us. You know the business. We're always just a mouse click away on the World Wide Web. But we'll see you in 2 weeks. We'll do Clinical. So until then, for every horror movie on Netflix, I'm Chris.
I'm Patrick.
I'm Steve, and remember, it's not about what you are. It's about who you are.
Tears in my eyes.
Also, college, job, family.
College, job, family. College, job, family.